A bombshell claim has rippled through the Trump family as Jasmine Crockett delivers a statement about Ivanka that visibly unsettles even President Trump. Could the narrative reassumed about their relationship be hiding a startling secret? The chamber buzzed that day, a tangible tension threading the air. This wasn't just a routine session. Everyone sensed that something consequential was about to unfold. Lawmakers shifted in their seats, whispering among themselves, exchanging wary glances. The debate was heated, certainly, yet no one could anticipate just how astonishing the proceedings were about to become. Then, Jasmine Crockett rose to her feet. Crockett has never shied from confrontation or diluted her words. She carries herself with unmistakable presence, sharp, direct, and supremely confident. The kind of figure whose demeanor alone signals that when she speaks, attention is demanded. That day, her gaze swept the room, lingering briefly. On the side where Trump's allies sat, she held her pause, letting murmurs gradually dissolve into expectant silence. The chamber's hush grew dense, almost suffocating. Then she spoke. Her voice steady, controlled, yet undeniably firm. She made a statement about Ivanka Trump that profoundly challenged public understanding of her role and relationship to the president. The words landed with visceral impact. At first, no one moved. It was as if air had been sucked from the room. Some froze, mouths half open in disbelief. Others shifted uneasily, unsure if they'd heard correctly. A few offered nervous laughs, but tension thickened. The assertion was clear, precise, and demanded serious attention. Crockett was deliberate, leaving no ambiguity. Whispers erupted through the chamber, a cacophony of hushed voices. Lawmakers leaned toward one another, covering mouths, eyes darting toward Trump's section. Reporters scribbled frantically. Even usually unflappable aides paused, frozen by gravity of the claim. Trump's allies shifted uneasily, murmuring under their breath, but no one immediately challenged her. The claim was too potent, too unusual, too unexpected. Crockett, aware of the ripple she'd caused, did not waver. She did not soften her stance. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, voice firm as she added, "And for those who doubt, understand this. I have official documents to support my statement." The reaction was instant. Official documents, not rumors or speculation, but evidence. This was no longer a dramatic line in a speech. It was a major assertion demanding attention. People turned to each other, eyes wide, whispering urgently. Some demanded to see the evidence. Others shook heads, insisting it couldn't be true. Yet Crockett remained composed, as if awaiting this precise moment. In that instant, the chamber felt less like a legislative hall and more like a courtroom, where a shocking accusation had just been presented. It was a stage where a single statement could shift the conversation. Her power came not from volume but from the silence that followed. As whispers grew, one unsettling question hovered: what if she was telling the truth? Trump's past controversial remarks about Ivanka were public, etched in collective memory. People remembered his interviews, casual comments about her appearance, and distinct ways he spoke of her in media. Crockett's words did not fall into empty space. They landed on a record already colored by unusual statements and persistent curiosity about their relationship. Some lawmakers avoided eye contact, staring at papers as though the floor might open. Others exchanged knowing glances, silently acknowledging that this revelation was unlike anything before. In that electrifying moment, one truth became clear: Jasmine Crockett had profoundly shifted the room's atmosphere. No matter how allies might respond, the words were spoken. Understanding of Ivanka Trump's role and connection to Donald Trump had been challenged. Once raised, such questions do not vanish. They linger, leaving indelible traces that no denial can erase. The moment Crockett spoke, the chamber felt undeniably different. Like a spark igniting dry tinder, the reaction was immediate. People weren't just surprised. They were stunned because many had already heard statements, interviews, and soundbites that made her revelation feel plausibly unsettling. Everyone recalled how Donald Trump had spoken of Ivanka. Over years, it was rarely ordinary. Not the language most fathers use of daughters. The most striking memory was a televised interview. Trump, casual and confident, had famously said, "If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her." The audience laughed nervously. The interviewer chuckled, unsure how to respond. Trump smirked, enjoying attention. That statement lingered, replayed over years, a reminder of his unusual way of discussing family. Then came numerous talk show appearances. Those following interviews from 2004 and 2006 remembered more controversial remarks. Comments generating public criticism. Words sparking intense discussion about propriety. Those statements traveled far, plastered across headlines, dissected on radio, whispered in households nationwide. To some, they revealed Trump's candid style. To others, part of his larger-than-life persona. But anyone paying attention knew the remarks never felt entirely normal. Trump did not stop at dating remarks. He frequently praised Ivanka's appearance in interviews, mentioning height and attractiveness. Some phrasing drew criticism, particularly from commentators finding it unusual for a father to speak of a daughter this way. For many, these comments were deeply uncomfortable, unforgettable. Now imagine sitting in that chamber, hearing Crockett stand and make a statement about Ivanka Trump that profoundly challenged established perceptions. Past remarks resurfaced like unsettling echoes. Statements once awkward now carried heavy new weight. Lawmakers exchanged quick glances there. Expressions silently mirrored the same unsettling thought. Could this new claim actually explain the pattern of Trump's statements over the years? Could it cast a wholly different light on his unusual commentary? The true impact of Crockett's statement lay not only in what she had just said but in how it seamlessly linked to publicly documented statements made by Trump himself. Words spoken on television, on the radio, before large audiences. Words impossible to ignore, and which the public had never entirely forgotten. Every time Trump made a new remark about Ivanka in interviews or media appearances, those old statements inevitably resurfaced online, replayed, analyzed, and dissected. They had become an undeniable part of the public's perception of the unique Trump family dynamics. So when Crockett presented her assertion, the chamber did not hear only her voice. They heard it layered over years of Trump's own words, comments, and interviews. This pre-existing context amplified her statement profoundly, making it resonate far more than an isolated claim ever could. Suddenly, those past statements were no longer isolated incidents. They became part of a broader, more intricate narrative, one that compelled the audience to pause and reconsider everything. That was precisely why the impact was so sharp. Crockett did not need to shout. She did not need to demand attention. She simply connected a new, profound claim to a long public history of statements. And that connection carried immense force. The whispers in the chamber no longer concerned just Crockett. They were about Trump, his behavior, and the disquieting patterns in his words. Legislators silently ran through years of interviews and quotes in their minds, asking questions they were not yet ready to voice aloud. Could this explain the perceived closeness between father and daughter? Could it explain her influence in his decision-making? Could it even illuminate a bond that had often seemed unusually strong, even unconventional? No one dared voice these questions openly, yet their presence hung in the chamber, palpable and heavy. Crockett stood tall, observing the ripple effect of her statement unfold across colleagues' faces. She had masterfully used publicly known statements to frame her assertion in a way utterly impossible to ignore. Words fade over time. But when placed in the right context, when a spark is struck, they can ignite renewed, intense attention. That day, Crockett struck precisely that spark, and the reaction spread like wildfire. Whispers still bounced off the chamber walls when Jasmine Crockett calmly raised her hand for silence. Her face was serene, almost too serene. This was not the look of someone casually tossing out a random accusation. This was the look of someone holding truly significant information close, fully aware of the absolute attention she had captured. Then she delivered the words that made every head in the room snap toward her. "I have documents, official records, verification." A profound ripple swept through the room. Gasps, murmurs, a few skeptical, nervous chuckles. The words, documents, and verification, carried a weight no one could ignore. Up until that moment, some had assumed her initial statement was merely dramatic, a rhetorical jab meant to unsettle Trump's allies. But now she unequivocally claimed to possess official records. The chamber shifted, moving from surprise to outright disbelief. People craned their necks, straining to see if she truly held anything. Was she bluffing? Could any of this be real? Crockett did not rush. She allowed the suspense to build, a palpable force in the room. She stood tall, hands resting casually on the desk, gaze steady and unflinching as she began to elaborate. She spoke of government-issued records, certificates, legal documentation, pieces of paper recognized by the state, not by politics or fleeting opinion. In her words, these records could illuminate long-standing questions about family dynamics and public roles. The murmurs grew louder, more agitated. Reporters' pens scratched even faster. Colleagues whispered urgently, leaning in conspiratorially. The word records moved like an electric current through the chamber. Crockett did not stop there. She mentioned other official documents, registrations, licenses, and filings that, according to her, could clarify intricate relationships and titles previously unseen by the public. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing on every shoulder. It was not empty. It was dense with curiosity, disbelief, and mounting tension. Some of Trump's allies shouted back, faces flushed, voices echoing with indignation. "Falsehoods!" one cried. Another dismissed it as political theater, yet even their certainty sounded shaky, as though unsure how far Crockett was prepared to go. Crockett did not flinch. She looked directly at them and repeated with unnerving calm, "I have the documents." Her unwavering certainty rattled even the most hardened doubters. All eyes instinctively turned toward Donald Trump. He sat rigidly, jaw clenched, clearly trying to maintain impossible composure under the chamber lights. Advisors leaned in, whispering frantically, gesturing urgently. It was clear this had swiftly shifted from political noise to something demanding immediate attention. Yet Crockett pressed on. She described the records not merely as proof but as crucial pieces of a much broader story, one she implied explained intricate patterns of public perception and influence. She painted a vivid picture of carefully managed appearances, suggesting the public had not seen the full underlying truth. She did not wave papers dramatically. She did not need to. The mere suggestion of their existence sufficed. The room buzzed with a torrent of new questions. Where did she get these records? Were they authentic? Who else might know? Even skeptics could not ignore the profound weight of her assertion. The seed of doubt had been firmly planted, and doubt, once sown, grows alarmingly fast. Some lawmakers remained utterly frozen, staring blankly ahead. Others leaned conspiratorially to whisper to colleagues. The press gallery hummed with frenetic energy, cameras clicking, recorders running nonstop. Through it all, Crockett remained perfectly poised, a faint, almost imperceptible trace of satisfaction in her eyes. She did not need to present every document on the chamber floor. She only needed to suggest the tantalizing possibility enough to make people imagine, enough to make the entire room question, enough to keep attention irrevocably fixed on the unfolding story. She knew the true power of official records. You don't always need to show them. The mere possibility alone can irrevocably shift perception, provoke deep thought, and spark widespread conversation. And that day, Jasmine Crockett did precisely that. As the chamber buzzed with the sheer weight of Jasmine Crockett's words, a new fundamental question began to coalesce in every mind. Why? Why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths to meticulously manage their public image? Why keep something potentially controversial, hidden, obscured from public view? Crockett's voice, steady and sharp, cut through the escalating murmurs. You want to know why? She asked, her eyes sweeping across the packed room. I'll tell you why. The room collectively leaned in, captivated. She began to paint a compelling picture, not about personal scandal, but about carefully constructed public perception. According to her, the underlying focus wasn't simply family, it was about strategy, influence, and the absolute control of the narrative. Think about it, she said, raising her hand for emphasis. What wins sympathy? What earns trust? A politician with a supportive, seemingly conventional family standing firmly by their side. It looks wholesome. That looks relatable. It looks safe. Heads nodded, even among those hesitant to admit the obvious. The image of Trump with Ivanka consistently by his side had been a fixture for years on campaign trails, at business meetings, even inside the White House. The smiling daughter supporting the father was a picture meticulously framed for public consumption. But Crockett continued, imagine if that picture were different. Imagine if the actual story behind that image weren't what the public assumed. The words landed heavily, undeniably. The chamber went silent, a new, profound realization dawning. On many, suddenly, the carefully crafted image of the family could be seen not as organic, but as a deliberate, calculated strategy. Questions that had once seemed irrelevant now demanded serious consideration. That, Crockett said firmly, is precisely why appearances matter. That's why narratives are so diligently managed. She meticulously broke it down piece by piece like a seasoned prosecutor laying out irrefutable evidence before a jury. Her first motive, shaping public perception. Families, she explained, are powerful political symbols. Politicians are judged not just by their policies, but by the carefully constructed story their families tell. A supportive traditional family unit creates warmth and relatability. A complicated, unconventional image, however, invites uncomfortable questions and intense scrutiny. Her second motive, controlling the narrative. By meticulously managing the public's perception, a politician can dictate precisely how their story is told. The media and the public are expertly guided toward the intended message, ensuring the image remains pristine and any difficult questions remain muted. Her third motive, minimizing scrutiny. Complex stories inherently invite examination and often unwanted intrusion. Simplifying appearances and adhering to a familiar, reassuring narrative shields the individual from unnecessary controversy and damaging speculation. Her fourth motive, creating a protective image. Strong conventional family bonds are culturally revered, making questioning them seem almost taboo. Carefully curated public images can effectively discourage critics and subtly soften opposition. Her fifth motive, social acceptance. Traditional family images deeply resonate with broad audiences, conveying cherished values and a sense of stability. A consistent public presentation helps to maintain crucial support and deftly avoid unwanted judgment. Crockett laid it all out like intricate puzzle pieces snapping perfectly into place. Each motive built seamlessly on the last, revealing not a sensational scandal, but a coldly calculated approach to influence and perception. The chamber grew restless. Some shook their heads, still unwilling to fully believe it. Others leaned back, thoughtfully absorbing the chilling strategy she had just described. Then she delivered her final poignant point. "This isn't just about appearances," she said quietly, her words carrying immense weight in their unnerving calmness. "It's about profound influence. It's about meticulously crafted image. It's about the deliberate choices people make to maintain absolute control over the public. They often unknowingly only see what's meant to be seen." Echoed through the chamber, a stark reminder that public perception is a powerfully managed construct, and that every public image tells a carefully selected story. Crockett had taken the discussion further than anyone expected. She wasn't accusing anyone personally. She was exposing with surgical precision how narratives and appearances can be orchestrated. And now that intricate strategy was laid bare for all to see. The room was still buzzing with a low hum when the full weight of Jasmine Crockett's claims truly began to settle. But for one person in particular, there was no hum, no buzz, only a cold, creeping panic. Donald Trump. He sat rigidly in his chair, shoulders tight, his eyes darting frantically. The calm, commanding aura he usually projected was visibly fracturing, thin lines of stress forming on his face with every passing heartbeat. Advisors whispered urgently in his ear, but he barely registered their words. The vast room seemed to shrink, encompassing only him and the terrifying possibility that everything he had painstakingly built, the image, a carefully curated family story, his impenetrable political armor, was now unraveling before his very eyes. Trump's first instinct was immediate, forceful denial. His voice, sharp and clipped, cut abruptly through the murmurs. "This is false," he declared. "Completely false." But even as he spoke, the words lacked their usual authoritative force. Denial could only go so far when Crockett had so confidently claimed to possess documents, certificates, and IDs, irrefutable proof that, if real, couldn't simply be brushed aside. He rose abruptly, pacing in short, frustrated bursts. His hands sliced through the air as if swatting invisible critics. Advisors leaned even closer, murmuring frantic strategies. How to spin it, how to discredit her, how to regain control. But even they sensed the profound fragility of the moment. Meanwhile, the whispers throughout the chamber grew louder, more speculative. Every journalist, every politician, every aide, everyone began to envision the dramatic scenario, Ivanka in a role that profoundly challenged public perception, a connection far beyond what was commonly understood. The carefully crafted public image that had been presented for years now hung in a delicate balance, visibly teetering toward collapse. Ivanka herself remained unusually silent, her expression unreadable, a complex mix of shock, discomfort, and perhaps calculation. She did not rush to defend or deny. That profound silence only added more fuel to the rampant speculation, making the unfolding story feel even more real, more immediate. People leaned forward in their seats, straining to catch every micro-expression. Trump then tried a different tactic: distraction. He launched into a familiar rhythm of speeches, highlighting past accomplishments, pivoting swiftly to policy, desperately trying to pull attention away from Crockett's bombshell revelation, but the strategy faltered, utterly ineffective. The room wasn't listening. Their minds replayed the words over and over: documents, proof, official records, and it stretched into what felt like hours. Beads of sweat appeared at Trump's temple, and his usual impenetrable confidence visibly faltered under the relentless, crushing weight of uncertainty. Every aide, every advisor, every hushed whisper now felt magnified, echoing ominously. Panic wasn't just public. It was acutely, undeniably personal. Then came moments of quiet, intense calculation. Trump's famously sharp mind, even under such profound stress, began to frantically weigh his options. Should he launch a direct personal attack on Crockett? Should he relentlessly question the validity of her documents? Or should he double down, vehemently insisting Ivanka was always his daughter, and that no evidence could ever truly change that foundational narrative? Each potential option carried immense risk. Each choice was a treacherous potential trap. The panic morphed into a churning storm inside his chest, one he could neither calm nor ignore. Meanwhile, reporters scribbled notes, faster than ever before. Cameras flashed incessantly, capturing every nervous twitch, every minute microreaction. Questions began to form in every corner of the room, blossoming like insidious weeds. How long had this potential secret existed? Who else was privy to it? What did Ivanka herself truly think or know? Could this revelation completely upend his political power, entirely reshape his legacy? By the time the chambers slowly began to settle, it was unequivocally clear the world had irrevocably shifted. Trump's impenetrable aura of control had cracked, perhaps only slightly. But Crockett had undeniably exposed a vulnerability few had ever witnessed. Panic was no longer private. It was starkly, disturbingly public, visible in his gestures, his strained words, and the suffocating tension that stubbornly refused to leave the room. And even as the room slowly emptied, one chilling truth remained. Certain the story was far from over. The questions would not cease. The reactions would ripple far beyond the immediate walls of the chamber. It profoundly touched politics, media, and every corner of public imagination. Trump's panic wasn't merely about his reputation. It was about survival, political, personal, and profoundly strategic. Crockett's audacious revelation had struck directly at the very heart of the meticulously constructed image he had built. And for the first time in years, that image was now terrifyingly vulnerable. The room buzzed with lingering questions. The documents, unverified yet intensely feared. The truth, or at least the compelling perception of it, had already made its indelible mark. And somewhere in the unsettling silence that followed, Trump knew with a sinking certainty that the game had shifted forever. So, what do you think? Was Jasmine Crockett using a calculated exaggeration to make an unforgettable point? Or is there truly more to this story, a deeper, more profound truth than anyone currently dares to admit? Share your thoughts below. This one, without a shadow of a doubt, is far from over.